putting together my Rockler router table dust box. I added 4 or 5 layers of electrical tape onto the back of the cord exit just to keep it in place. I guess I could have added a little dollop of epoxy, but the tape is just as permanent and just as successful. I am going to add an exterior start-stop switch, and so I'm going to drill some holes there and go ahead and mount it. Well, putting the Rockler router table dust bucket together was more or less a paint-by-numbers exercise. It went together just like it was supposed to, no problem at all. No strip screws. I didn't have to drill or tap any holes at all. I did add the switch, but that's really it. I mean, everything just worked, and so I can't wait to get it under the table and get a router spinning inside and the back hooked up and all that goodness. And I went to do a fit check, and I know you're going to be shocked by this, and it's not Rockler's fault. This isn't a Rockler issue. It's the fact that I used a off-brand router table. So the holes here for mounting don't line up with the top holes. So it's got, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes. So what I'm going to do is either out of 3/4 ply or out of some probably 16 gauge steel. I'm not sure. I'm going to cut out an adapter plate, one that mounts directly onto the box and then mounts here onto the bottom of the table. So I just got this sweet sign here for $8, and it made it home and was here for all of about 3 minutes before I marked out a template, and I'm going to cut it up as an adapter plate for my router table. Do wonders with a cutoff wheel. Weird side note, it seems that the last 4 or 5 projects I've done have all been in black. And then after the deed was done. Alright, my adapter plate's on and fastened here to the dust box. I'm going to let it sit and dry for just a little bit longer, and then we'll see if everything lines up like it's supposed to. And I actually found enough screws of the proper length and the proper thread size and pitch that I don't have to go to Home Depot. So I'm pretty pleased about that. So for my wife saying that I have problems with tool hoarding and supply hoarding, ha-ha! I really didn't want to repeat this process, and I wanted to get the mounting holes perfectly aligned. So I measured them up and then, wrote out the measurements, and then just for the sake of being somewhat correct, I tried again, and what I found was I was a 1/4 inch off. So I put my Thunken cap on, and what I did was I put a sheet of paper on, and then hopped on the bottom and made a trace template. And this is the fruit of that paper template. All right, so I've transferred the holes from this template to the adapter plate, and then I'll go ahead and drill them. All right, the box is in. The adapter plate seems to work perfectly. It mounted up first time, no re-drilling, and then the router plate goes right in. So now I have a dust box for my router table. For the shelf on the end of the router table, I've got a ton of poplar and pine and even oak laying around. And I thought about doing it out of that, but in addition to that, I had some scrap, believe it or not, cherry from some paddles I built, and some walnut that my neighbor gave me. My neighbor is a contractor, and he was working on a theater down in Tacoma, and they did a bunch of walnut trim, and so I've got these really weird offcuts. So I decided to put them to use, and so I'm going to laminate this up cutting board paddle pizza pill style and use it for that end of the router table. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do kind of a guitar body thing here. So that's why I got away with some of the scrap pieces that were a little shorter. And so as you can see, this is actually from a different board than these, but I think I'm being nitpicky. So it'll look great when I'm done. So we have the start of the glue up here. I'm going to leave it overnight and let it get good and set. Now, I've featured these in a couple of previous videos, but these are literally the most metal clamps I have ever owned, figuratively too, I guess. But I got them in France when we lived there, and they're made out of T-bar and cast pieces, and the amount of pressure that you can apply to gluing wood, and even pressure too, is absolutely astonishing. So these are my forever clamps. I have 12 of them, and they were not cheap. I think they were the equivalent of about $50 each US. But I have a feeling that they will outlive my grandchildren in usage. With my trusty number 4 jack plane here / scrub plane, went ahead and knocked all of the dried glue off of this side for preparation on the first pass through the planer. I went ahead and planed this first side down. It's not even a finishing cut, it's a dimensioning cut at like 96 cuts per inch. It looks real good. It looks really good. So now that I got this side nice and flat, I'm going to flip it over and flatten out this mess. I accidentally glued it upside down. I aligned everything. This was supposed to be the bottom kind of like this, but it didn't work out that way because I glued it up wrong. Shocking, I know. Alright, let's put it through the planer. Really nice job. Really happy with how flat both sides are. The DeWalt planer does a really nice job on that. So let's get it cut to the proper shape now and get her installed. So I have the tiniest little bit of separation here, and then some chipping here, separation as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these two cracks with some epoxy. And just like I do my paddles, I'm going to use silver tip epoxy, and I'm going to mix it 2 parts A and 1 part B. I'm going to use the red Dixie cup and the little shooter cup for something other than liquor. I've got the bottom taped off and the side taped off, and then I am going to squeegee this in with whatever I have left. I'm going to continue filling this cup. I got a little bit of that cherry shaving with sawdust and epoxy to make another plain foregrip. So I'm going to put that on the lathe. That'll be a whole separate video, but that's where it came from. I got 2 or 3 of them floating around. Alright, I'm not doing some sort of magical table pour. You will notice that there's bubbles in there. There just are. It'll be fine. It's starting to warm up, so that means the epoxy is nice and mixed. So let's start getting it on there. I'm not too worried about this extra because I am going to sand this one good time before it gets the final coat of varnish. But you can see from this bit of epoxy like how that color is going to pop. For varnish, I'm going to put on some marine satin spar varnish. I really like McCluskey, and it's a little older, and so it's ambered up, but I think that's really going to make that pop. I actually put 2 coats of epoxy on, and I went ahead and sanded this down with 110 and then with 220, and then made sure to get all the dust off. So let's get to it. After sanding the 2 coats of silver tip epoxy, we got the first coat of varnish on. So my cracks filled with the epoxy really nicely. I'm real happy how that turned out. I had to take the fence off one more time, and it's such a pain to get back on. Ugh. But I did put the 4-foot levels on, and I've got them clamped down way down on the main body of the saw, and then I've got these clamped in, so it's perfectly smooth. So I went ahead and marked the holes, and I'm gonna pre-drill and then install. As mentioned, pre-drill, and if you're gonna screw, use lubrication. This is actually my last batch of beeswax screw lube that I have. I need to take some of the wax from the hives this year and make some more. I had to get a little creative getting to the screws on the front. And finally done. Table saw with 2 cast wings, one of them being the router with this piece installed. Get right in here. Work. Yep, real happy with how all this finally came together.